Okay, so let's walk through this task a little bit so you know what you're doing. Um, so basically, the point of this is to look at certain turns in conversations and determine if everything that is in that turn is verifiable given a source document. So this is what's called retrieval augmented generation, right? So we want the generated turn to only use information in the document. But when it doesn't, we want to know like what is the nature of that content. You know, is it subjective? Is it just completely false or whatever? So let's walk through an example. So what you're going to do first is just look at this conversation. And you're going to be focusing on just like the last turn in that conversation, but it's important to read the entire thing. So here, the human says, "I like Natalie Babbitt books. Does the author release any new books you can recommend?" The assistant says, "There are quite a number of books by Natalie Babbitt in different genres. Would you prefer any particular genre?" The human says, "Well, I do have any preference, but live comedy books." So you'll notice here some of these turns are going to be not the most sensible, but just kind of do your best with them. The assistant says, "Right now we have romance, fiction, and children's literature, and I'm sorry, it is limited at the moment." The human says, "Is Tuck Everlasting an interesting one?" And the assistant says, "That has a fiction and fantasy genre. Do you like those genres?" So, focusing on this turn here, the first thing that we are going to do here is decompose that into what we're calling individual claims. So these are kind of like the minimal distinct pieces of information that are expressed in what the assistant says. And the hope here is that the claims together will express everything that the assistant has said, right? Okay. So we get 1, Tuck Everlasting is in the fiction genre, and 2, Tuck Everlasting is in the fantasy genre. So we're going to go through each of these claims and assess each one. So first, Tuck Everlasting is in the fiction genre. So the first question is, how should this claim be handled? So this is basically just asking you, is this a good decomposition of what the assistant said? And I would say the answer to that is yes. So this claim is correct. And then it asks, how does this claim relate to the document? So looking at the document here, we have Natalie Babbitt wrote Tuck Everlasting. Tuck Everlasting has a genre of romance novel. Tuck Everlasting is written by Natalie Babbitt. Natalie Babbitt wrote Tuck Everlasting. Tuck Everlasting has genre of fiction. I know that this document is terrible. It sounds awful, but that's what we have. So we're looking at this bit, right? So Tuck Everlasting has genre of fiction, which makes this claim verifiable, okay? So your options here are verifiable, so that basically means that the document fully supports the claim. So basically you can say it's true. Contradicted means that the document directly refutes the claim. So, for example, if the document says something like Tuck Everlasting has a genre nonfiction, then that would be a contradiction. Lacking evidence basically just means that there's not enough information to verify or refute the claim. So there's just not enough information there, right? Out of scope is going to be subjective information, or like talking about personal experiences, or stuff that's kind of more like chit-chatty than like meant to be informative. And we can look at an example of that in a minute. And then abstention is going to be basically where the assistant says, like, I don't know the answer to that. So, if the human here had asked, is Tuck Everlasting an interesting one? And the assistant said, I don't know, I've never heard of that book. That would be an abstention. Okay, so moving on. Tuck Everlasting is in the fantasy genre. So looking at the document here, we don't see fantasy anywhere in here, right? But we know that this claim is correct, right? So that's an adequate claim given this this turn, but we can't say that it's verifiable given the document, right? So you kind of have to choose here between contradicted, and lacking evidence. Here I would go with lacking evidence because something can be romance and fiction and fantasy, right? Now, if this said Tuck Everlasting was nonfiction, that would be a contradiction, right? Because something can't really be fiction and nonfiction at the same time. Okay. And then you have the option to add new claims if necessary. So if anything is missing from these claims, then you could add it in, right? So I think that this is a pretty good decomposition. The one bit that's missing here is the "do you like those genres" part, right? So because that this is a question that doesn't really have any information kind of embedded in it, I'm trying to think of an example, but if the question were something like, did you know that Tuck Everlasting is fiction? That would be different, right? Because that kind of embeds this claim that Tuck Everlasting is fiction. But here, I think there isn't really tons that you can do with this question. So, I would say don't add a claim here, but, let's pretend you ran into a situation where you didn't know what to do here, right? So you wanted to add a claim like, the assistant asks if the human likes fiction and fantasy. And then you would just annotate that just like the others. And that would probably be out of scope, right? Because there isn't really any information that you can verify from that. Okay, so again, I want to emphasize that I don't think that this claim is one that should be added, but we're just doing it for the sake of example here. If I were doing this, I would do something like unsure if added claim is necessary. So this box is just basically for anywhere, for anything that you have questions about or are unsure of, so that I can review it after the fact. Okay. All right. So that's what a dialogue looks like. So just a quick couple notes about the interface here. So the back button helps you back and skip, help you move through different conversations. Next is actually how you submit the conversation, like the annotations. And you can redo them if you need to, but note that your responses are going to get cleared out after you move away from the page. That's because I'm not that great at web dev, so this is the best that I can do at the moment. Okay, so let's look at another conversation here. Let's look at this one. Okay, so the one that I just showed you about Tuck Everlasting, you were only annotating one turn. So that will be the case for some of these conversations, but some other conversations are going to have multiple turns to assess, right? So for this one, let's kind of go through this quickly. Are you a fan of Elvis Presley? And the wizard says, you mean the king of rock and roll? Yes, I am. Best of all time. Don't you agree? So one quick note here is that here we have apprentice and wizard. Before we had human and assistant. It doesn't matter too much. You're always going to be looking at the last bolded turn here. But this gets decomposed into 3 claims. The wizard refers to Elvis Presley as the king of rock and roll. The wizard is a fan of Elvis Presley. And the wizard considers Elvis Presley the best of all time. Okay, so let's look at the first claim. The wizard refers to Elvis Presley as the king of rock and roll. So, this is correct, but I would actually edit this claim. And here is why. So I think that we really don't need this the wizard refers to part. I think that that's just kind of unnecessary and a little bit distracting. So I would change this to just Elvis Presley is the king of rock and roll. Okay. And then that is directly stated in the document. So that one is verifiable. The next one, the wizard is a fan of Elvis Presley. I think that this is good. And how does this claim relate to the document? So this is really out of scope, right? So the document is not going to tell us if the wizard is actually a fan or not. So that's kind of subjective. And then similar thing here, the wizard considers Elvis Presley the best of all time. I'd say this is a good claim and is also out of scope. So then the question is, are these claims together fully expressive of the wizard's turn? And I would say that the answer to that is yes. So we can skip this add a new claim section. No real notes to add here. Okay. So let's look at this one. So this is the next wizard turn in the same conversation. So the apprentice says, I really don't, period. I mean, some of his stuff was okay, but I guess I'm not the most familiar with his entire catalog. So you're going to see some less than perfect English in some of these conversations and in some of the documents. These are all coming from different data sets that were written by crowd workers. So some stuff is just going to be messy, unfortunately. So just do your best. If something doesn't make sense, just make a note of it. But, you can kind of ignore typos, you should be ashamed of yourself. Okay, so looking at this one, the wizard says, you should be ashamed of yourself. Presley's first RCA single, Heartbreak Hotel, was America's top selling song. So we get 3 claims here. The apprentice should be ashamed of themselves. Elvis Presley's first RCA single was Heartbreak Hotel. And the Heartbreak Hotel was America's top selling song. Okay, so the apprentice should be ashamed of themselves. That claim is fine, but out of scope. Elvis Presley's first RCA single was Heartbreak Hotel, correct, and verifiable given the document. Okay, and then we have Heartbreak Hotel was America's top selling song. So this claim is correct, given the turn, right? But we have nothing about it being America's top selling song in the document, right? So this is going to be lacking evidence. All right. So hopefully that kind of gives you a picture of what we're doing here. Some of these are going to take longer than others, but just kind of do your best. You don't have to do all of these conversations at once, but I would, so one, definitely, once you finish one, definitely make sure you hit the next button. It is going to make you respond to to all the questions here, or all the mandatory questions at least, before you can submit. But once you finish a conversation, make sure you hit the next button so that that's submitted. But if you want to, leave and come back to the task, just make sure that you are keeping track of what conversation that you're on, so that you don't have to repeat stuff or accidentally skip things. Okay. So like if I, did 5 conversations and then like walked away, I would just want to know that I should be starting on the next conversation, which, interesting that it says 6 and 7 here, but anyway, I'll fix that. Okay, that's everything that I can think of, so hopefully that at least kind of gets you rolling on the task, and we will just address questions as they come up.